Welcome to this explainer. Right now, it feels like every company is just sprinting into the AI future, eagerly grabbing every new tool they can find to boost productivity. But there's a massive problem. They are leaving their legal and human infrastructure completely in the dust. We're looking at a landscape where rapid tech adoption has violently collided with new, aggressive legal frameworks. So today, we're going to build your 2026 corporate blueprint. We're going to focus on how we absolutely must fundamentally change the way we govern both our algorithms and our distributed workforce to survive what's coming.
Okay, let's jump right into our roadmap for today. We'll start with the 2026 compliance blind spot. Then we'll navigate through AI hiring laws, compare the NIST and ISO 4201 frameworks, talk about governing distributed human teams, and finally wrap it all up with the 2026 corporate blueprint.
All right, starting with Section 1, the 2026 compliance blind spot, the HR crisis hiding in plain sight.
I want you to think about this number for a second. 57%. That is a massive figure. It represents the percentage of HR teams out there right now that are actively breaking state-level AI hiring laws they literally haven't even heard of. According to a recent 2026 SHRM report, more than half of HR pros operating in states with enacted AI employment legislation are completely in the dark. I mean, think about what this looks like on the ground. It is incredibly easy for an eager middle manager to quietly swipe a corporate card for a $50 a month SaaS tool to help screen resumes. They think they're just being efficient, right? But by using these automated screeners, AI-scored assessments, or even simple chatbots, they are crossing strict legal boundaries without realizing it, instantly creating massive liability for the entire company.
And honestly, the deeper you look at the data, the scarier it gets. Let's break down the why behind this crisis. Even among the 43% of HR folks who are aware of these laws, action is just dangerously slow. 19% are aware but doing absolutely nothing, and 12% are merely in the planning phase. So when you actually do the math, effective compliance in regulated states is hovering around a dismal 5%. That means 95 out of 100 affected HR teams are currently exposed to unmitigated liability. They're essentially driving on the highway blindfolded, just waiting for a regulatory crash.
Moving on to Section 2, navigating AI hiring laws and geographic threat mapping. This regulatory landscape, it is highly localized, super fragmented, and incredibly punitive. Take New York City, for instance. They require an independent bias audit. This means you have to hire a third party to literally prove your AI doesn't discriminate based on race or gender. And you have to give candidates advance notice that a machine is judging them. Illinois mandates strict disclosure and consent before you use any AI video analysis on an applicant. But the real heavyweight here is the Colorado AI Act. It requires comprehensive, ongoing impact assessments and carries penalties of $20,000 per violation, with absolutely no aggregate cap. Let that sink in. If a mid-market employer rejects just 10 applicants through a non-compliant AI tool in Colorado, they instantly face $200,000 in fines. That's the cost of one manager having a bad afternoon of resume screening.
Now, whatever you do, please don't fall into a false sense of security regarding federal regulations. Despite recent federal executive orders expressing a preference for federal AI regulation, the courts have absolutely not paused any of these state laws. You simply cannot ignore local jurisdictions. And here's the real kicker for your operations today. Because of remote work, your legal exposure is determined by where your candidates are sitting on their laptops in their living rooms, not where your corporate HQ is located. So a company in Texas hiring a remote worker in Denver is fully subject to Colorado's aggressive penalties.
So, how do we fix this? That brings us to Section 3, Frameworks, NIST versus ISO 42001, our tech governance solution. To prevent those rogue algorithmic slip-ups and those terrifying fines, we really have to look at the two gold standards in tech governance, NIST and ISO 4201. A great way to wrap your head around the difference is to think about car safety. The NIST AI Risk Management Framework is like your vehicle's safety manual. It's voluntary guidance helping your engineers spot specific technical risks. It tells you where the airbags are, how the brakes work, and how to mitigate bias. ISO 4201, on the other hand, is the mandatory annual vehicle inspection. It's an international, certifiable standard for an AI management system that literally proves your car is actually safe to drive on the road. In short, NIST gives you the technical playbook for risk, while ISO provides the auditable organizational structure to ensure everyone is actually following that playbook.
Let's zoom in on NIST for a second. It uses 4 core functions: govern, map, measure, and manage. In practice, mapping means literally documenting where your data comes from and where it goes.
Measuring means rigorously testing the AI to see exactly how much bias or error actually exists before it ever touches a real human's resume. NIST also includes this AI 600.1 companion profile specifically built to tackle the unique, chaotic risks of generative AI tools. You know, like when large language models confidently make up false information, which we call hallucinations, or when they leak private data. But here is the catch. That final step, manage, requires continuous, rigorous monitoring. You can't just set it up once and walk away.
Which brings us to a super powerful insight from Lucas Hogue. He points out that without ISO 40201 enforcing periodic reevaluations, organizations are highly vulnerable to what's called model drift. For those unfamiliar, model drift is when an AI's accuracy degrades over time because the real-world data it interacts with starts to drift away from the original training data. You're also vulnerable to sneaky vendor updates, where a software provider just changes their algorithm overnight without even telling you. This perfectly captures why mature organizations don't just choose between the two frameworks. Instead, they strategically layer NIST's technical mapping inside ISO 40201's certifiable governance structure. NIST tells you what risks to watch for, and ISO ensures you have the strict process to enforce those checks year-round.
All right, Section 4. We've talked tech, now let's talk people. Governing distributed human teams, the human governance solution.
So we've got the algorithms locked down, but now we have to transition from managing the machines to managing the highly digitized humans actually using them. Just like AI needs structured governance, so do your people. Enter the Remote Work Coordinator. Right now, most companies handle remote work by just tossing the responsibility onto an HR rep or making an IT help desk person wear two hats. Honestly, that's a recipe for disaster. The Remote Work Coordinator requires a dedicated operational focus to prevent the hybrid work environment from totally fracturing. They are the vital human infrastructure holding 2026 operations together, ensuring the teams spread across multiple time zones remain cohesive, secure, and productive.
And let me tell you, the core competencies required for this role are intense. They go way beyond just setting up a Zoom link. Take time zone equity, for example. What does that actually mean? It means ensuring a developer sitting in Tokyo has the exact same access to project info and decision-making power as a manager sitting in New York without forcing anyone to jump on a 2 a.m. call. To pull that off, these professionals have to be absolute masters of asynchronous communication. They design workflows where clear, context-rich written messages or recorded updates replace the need for constant disruptive video meetings. They also actively manage digital security protocols to stop catastrophic data breaches before they happen, especially those stemming from employees using unsecured home Wi-Fi networks.
Now, because this role manages such a crazy intersection of tech stacks, multi-state compliance, and human productivity, compensating them fairly is absolutely critical. The data shows median salaries scaling rapidly from $52,000 at the entry level to over $82,000 for senior coordinators. But I want you to weigh that $82,000 salary against those fines we talked about earlier. Hiring a senior expert to govern your distributed workflows costs a fraction of a single $200,000 compliance fine in Colorado. When you look at the millions of dollars in potential AI fines and lost remote productivity they help prevent, funding this dedicated role is easily one of the highest ROI investments a modern company can make.
Let's bring it all home with Section 5, the 2026 Corporate Blueprint, Synthesis and Action.
Look, 2026 is practically right around the corner, and building these frameworks doesn't happen overnight. You need to act with urgency. And here are the 4 concrete steps to do it. First, audit your complete AI tool inventory. You literally can't govern what you don't know you have. Go find every rogue SaaS tool your teams are using. Second, map your regulatory exposure based on where your candidates and employees actually sit, not just your HQ. Third, implement those layered NIST and ISO 42001 frameworks to secure your tech and stop model drift. And finally, hire and empower dedicated remote work coordinators to manage the human workflows interacting with all this tech. This is exactly how you ensure you have the rigorous, structured oversight necessary to avoid catastrophic legal and operational failures.
I want to leave you with this provocative thought. In today's corporate landscape, you simply cannot separate technology governance from workplace operations. They are totally intertwined. If your AI is perfectly compliant, but your human workflows are a chaotic mess, you fail. If your teams are beautifully cohesive, but your algorithms are biased and unchecked, you face devastating fines. So ask yourself, is your organization truly ready to govern both? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Get out there, start auditing, start planning, and I'll catch you next time.